How does an INTJ ENTP relationship work, and what are their main strengths and weaknesses? In this video, I'll do a deep dive of their cognitive functions and really get to the core of what this relationship is all about. So let's get into it. All right, so let's get into this topic: INTJs and ENTPs and how they work as a golden pair. They're both intellectual types who focus on truth and knowledge primarily. They're pragmatic, they're independent individuals, so that can kind of come into play in their relationship. They're career focused, so that can be a specific issue when they're together. They might focus on their careers more, they might focus on their independent goals, their independent knowledge. So there can sometimes be some clashes when they're together, but this is not necessarily a problem. It's just a feature of their relationship. They're future focused, though. They're very abstract and visionary. So they can really come up with plans, who they want to be, what they want to do together, and really figure these things out in a relationship, gain knowledge, gain understanding, and plan ahead. So we'll go through all of the functions for both of these types and how they kind of work together in a relationship and what that means for them. It's a little bit of a deeper dive for this relationship. We're going to start with their first function, kind of the primary way these personality types interact with each other, which is their introverted intuition, extrovert intuition, interacting, the NI for INTJs, the NE for ENTPs. INTJs, they're decision makers, whereas ENTPs, they're forward thinkers. So INTJs like to make their own choices for their own future, go their own way, their own path, their own decisions, whereas ENTPs are a little bit more flexible. They like to kind of understand where everyone else is going, understand what could happen, the different possibilities. They like to look ahead, predict what's going to happen. But when it comes to decision making, INTJs like to make the decisions and ENTPs don't mind following them. They like to help them make decisions, and they of course like to make their own choices as well, but they don't mind if the INTJ takes the lead and is the primary, person who's kind of charting that course forward. And INTJs, they like that ENTPs will just do what the INTJ wants. They like that. They like that the ENTP won't necessarily, always get in their way or always challenge them, that they like that, the ENTP is going to be loyal to what they decide. Whereas the ENTP, on the other hand, they like that INTJs will want them and make the big decisions, make those difficult choices. So ENTPs kind of like that that's off their plate, that the INTJ will make those hard decisions for them, that they'll, be very determined and know what they want. And the ENTP can kind of feel desired and feel like they're wanted, and it helps them feel good about themselves. This makes, like I said, the ENTP feel desired, and the INTJ, they feel respected. They feel like, okay, they respect my decision making, they go along with what I want, they understand that I have these very long-term plans, these very well thought out plans, these big picture ideas for my future, and that they're going to understand that and respect that. So this is a very core foundation. These types are very abstract together. They look very deeply into things. They try to understand what can be new, what can be creative, and they use their imagination and their creativity together to formulate these ideas of what they want in their future. Then we have their second function together, ENTPs with TI and INTJs with TE. ENTPs, they're the logical thinkers, they're the internal analysts, whereas INTJs, they're the rational listeners. They like to understand different sources to gain knowledge from many different, thoughts, and try to synthesize those together to figure out what is true. Whereas the ENTP is more of an internal thinker. They're more going to think things through in their own head, using logic, using deduction to kind of figure out internal argumentation. So this works really well in their relationship because these people, INTJs, ENTPs, they're intellectuals. They're very knowledge and truth focused. So these types, they care a lot about being responsible, thinking things through, critical thinking, not just believing everything you hear, being a bit skeptical and analyzing things so that you can be as accurate as possible. And in a relationship, ENTPs, they like that INTJs will believe what they say is true. They like that INTJs have an open-minded perspective and are humble and able to hear other people out and listen. And INTJs, they like that ENTPs respect them and act sensibly and logically. So ENTPs are thoughtful people. They're going to try and be respectful in their relationships, think things through, really think about how it's going to affect other people, and they act more logically. They act very intellectually. They care about what's true. And INTJs, they appreciate that because that's what they're looking for in a relationship. So the INTJ can feel thought highly of, and the ENTP can feel heard. So this really works out well. The ENTP can express their thoughts and have someone listen, and the INTJ can have someone's thoughts to hear and learn from and kind of formulate their own beliefs around that. So that's a really important tenet of the relationship. And then we have the feeling functions in that third slot: INTJs with introverted feeling and ENTPs with extroverted feeling. INTJs are deeply emotional. They have a lot of feelings, morals, principles. And ENTPs, they're very empathetic. They're externally emotional. They like to connect to other people, care about other people's feelings. And in a relationship, INTJs like that the ENTP cares about how they feel. They care about their opinions. They care about whether they're happy or sad, and they want to make them feel better. And the INTJ really appreciates that, and they really like that about them. Whereas the ENTP likes that the INTJ is going to emotionally value them and express positive feelings, express love, express adoration. So they like that they're able to kind of express those positive feelings back to them so that these types can emotionally connect. ENTPs, they feel valued and sympathized with. They feel like that person is putting them first, prioritizing them emotionally regarding them. And the INTJ feels empathized with. The INTJ feels like somebody cares about them and somebody really wants them to be happy. So this really works out emotionally. And then we have the sensing functions, the fourth slot for these personality types: introverted sensing for ENTPs and extroverted sensing for INTJs. ENTPs, they're the SI user, they're the loyal actor, where INTJs are the considerate leaders. So INTJs, they care about, building a good experience, building comfort within the ENTP, and the ENTP likes to use their experience to be loyal to the INTJ. And ENTPs, they like that the INTJ cares about their comfort and experience. They appreciate that they are considerate of them, whereas the INTJs like that the ENTP is going to use their experience to support them. The ENTP can be dedicated, they can be consistent, they can be trusting of the INTJ's choices, and the INTJ can try and, consider them when they make decisions. And the INTJ is going to try and give a good experience back to the ENTP. So the INTJ can feel trusted and the ENTP can feel taken care of. And this works in a really good way as they try and have a good time together, a good experience together, and share positive experiences to build their loyalty, to build their trust in their relationship. All right, now we're going on to the next slide here. So we have NE and NI and how that kind of works when it goes into the shadow function. So we're talking not just ego functions, we're going to talk fifth to eighth functions as well. Do a full deep dive. So NE and NI, INTJs have their NE nemesis as their fifth function. They're a little bit worried predictors. They're worried about what's going to happen in the future. Whereas ENTPs are also kind of worried planners. They're worried about their own future as well. So we're kind of going to the reverse of what we just talked about with the four functions. Now it's that opposite order. It's that INTJ's shadow, which is the same functions as an ENTP's ego, and vice versa. So INTJs, they like that ENTPs are worried about making the right choice. They like that ENTPs aren't overly confident, whereas ENTPs, they like that INTJs help them plan and make difficult decisions. So ENTPs, they appreciate that the INTJ does understand that they have plans and they want things in their own life, and it kind of caters to that in kind of a skeptical and worried way. ENTPs can kind of feel understood in this way, and INTJs feel, a bit more trusting. They can trust the ENTP because they're not just making, decisions on the fly. They're actually kind of worried about making the wrong choice. And as we go into the sixth function, more pessimism, more worrying coming down. The TE, of course, now for the ENTP, and the TI for the INTJ, since these types have all 8 functions. ENTPs, they're external skeptics. This is where they get their argumentative, debating kind of reputation from, that very pessimistic, extroverted thinking. And, they don't just believe anyone. Whereas INTJs, they're internal skeptics. They're quite hard on their thinking. They're quite hard on themselves. They're going to think they're wrong. ENTPs think others are wrong. INTJs think they're wrong. That can kind of work out too. ENTPs like that INTJs just don't always think they're right and are too arrogant with their thinking that they're going to really process things. And INTJs like that ENTPs don't believe people blindly and they're actually going to verify their, beliefs a little bit more. So these types kind of like that they're both pessimistic about what's true and that they're not just going to be blind believers, because they're very intellectual focused. They really care about accuracy. Some problems with this is an INTJ may feel a little unheard from an ENTP if they're a bit closed-minded, and the ENTP may feel a bit disrespected if the INTJ is thinking poorly about them. So there can be some problems still with these functions. And then we have the 7th function, the feelings, even lower, the extroverted feeling for the INTJ and the introverted feeling for the ENTP. INTJs can be a little bit blind to other people's feelings, while ENTPs don't always care too much about their own feelings, so this can kind of work out easily. ENTPs like that INTJs are a little bit, detached and only care about their own feelings. And INTJs like that ENTPs aren't overly emotional. INTJs want people to be logical and sensical. And a little bit hypocritically, INTJs themselves are pretty emotional, but they like when other people aren't emotional. And that kind of works out because ENTPs aren't super emotional. But this can still result in problems. The ENTP may feel uncared about, and the INTJ may feel unvalued if this comes up. So the ENTP may struggle to kind of introspect how they feel, but the INTJ can sometimes struggle to externally, relate and empathize with other people's feelings. So there can be issues in this way. And then we have their final function, the eighth function, the extroverted sensing, introverted sensing, the SE for the ENTP, and the SI for the INTJ. And in general, what that means is INTJs are, they're not very habitual. They're not always going to focus on, having healthy habits. But that kind of works out because the ENTP doesn't care too much. The ENTP doesn't want to obligate or force people to do things they don't want to do. ENTPs like that an INTJ has a free soul and dictates their own path and will do what they want regardless of the situation. And INTJs like that ENTPs don't tell them what to do and that they're not going to force them to do things that they don't want to do. But this can still result in some problems, of course, where the ENTP may feel a little untrusted. The INTJ is not very trusting of people, whereas the INTJ may feel uncared for if they feel like the ENTP disregards their experience and is inconsiderate. So there can be some problems still, even though they don't care as much about these functions. So yeah, overall within ENTP and INTJ, it's a top pairing. It has full compatibility with emotional, intellectual decision making. It can really work out well. These shadow fears can sometimes complement each other unless there's a bit of an unmatched communication in case, like I said, there's some problems with this pessimism. Maturity is a big factor for long-term success. These types need to be able to work together and communicate. And I think I spelled it wrong. I'm realizing now. Yeah, work together, communicate, and understand each other so they can work through some of these potential issues. They might have to navigate through some rough waters to come out on the other side. A lot of times with very compatible types, they're not just going to get along, they might get along easily, sorry, but they might not just, last forever. It's not always going to make it easy. It still means there's going to be some blind spots, some mistakes, some miscommunications that are going to happen. So these types have to be able to work through those and be able to communicate openly and honestly and maturely in order to come out the other side and have a great relationship. So if you made it this far, thank you guys for watching. I hope you like this deep dive on the INTJ ENTP, pairing. And if you want to see more videos like this, please let me know in the comments down below and subscribe as well, as it helps the channel. And I hope you all have a great day.